September 22nd, 1945. This was the date scheduled for the biological end of San Diego. 5 long-range submarine carriers were to surface off the California coast, launching planes to rain down ceramic bombs filled with millions of plague-infected fleas. It was called Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night. If it had succeeded, the Black Death would have returned to the modern world, turning a sun-drenched naval hub into a city of shadows. But the bombs never fell.
Hi, this is Colin from the History Pilgrim. Today we are covering the interesting true story of how Japan almost used a bubonic plague as a biological weapon in World War II.
To understand why this nightmare almost became a reality, we have to look back at one of the darkest and most secretive chapters of World War II, the atrocities of Unit 731. Japan's use of biological weapons during the war was not science fiction or mere rumor. It was calculated, state-funded, and carried out by the Imperial Japanese Army. At its heart was Unit 731, a sprawling complex in Manchuria, China. Officially, the military called it a water purification facility. In reality, it was a biological slaughterhouse. Here, Chinese civilians and Allied POWs, including American, Soviet, and Australians, were subjected to grotesque experiments masquerading as medical science. Researchers at Unit 731 specialized in the industrial production of death. They bred millions of fleas infected with the plague and engineered specialized ceramic bombs designed to shatter mid-air, releasing their parasitic cargo over unsuspecting towns. In parts of China, entire villages were decimated by outbreaks linked to these operations. It is estimated that tens of thousands of civilians died, not from bullets or bayonets, but from a disease out of the Middle Ages. To understand the horror of this weapon, you have to understand the biology. The plague is caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis. It primarily lives in fleas that infect rodents. When an infected flea bites a human, the bacteria enters the bloodstream. The victim develops a high fever and painful swollen lymph nodes. Without modern antibiotics, death is nearly certain. Inside the flea's digestive tract, the Yersinia pestis multiplies so rapidly that it forms a physical blockage in the insect's foregut. When the starving flea tries to feed again, this obstruction prevents it from swallowing. In a desperate effort to draw blood, the flea regurgitates the bacteria directly into the bite wound of its new host. Because rodents thrived in the dense urban centers of 1940s China, they became the perfect vectors to carry the plague from the bomb site into the living rooms of the civilian population. By the summer of 1945, Japan was on the brink of total defeat. Its navy was a ghost of its former self, its air force was depleted, and its cities were being reduced to rubble by Allied firebombing. In a final desperate gamut, Japanese military leaders debated a strike on the American mainland. They chose San Diego. It was the principal home port of the Pacific Fleet, the very heart of the American war effort. Aircraft carriers, destroyers, and submarines departed from its docks around the clock. According to post-war testimony, the attack would have used the massive I-400 class submarines, underwater carriers capable of launching aircraft. The goal wasn't just to kill, it was to paralyze. Disrupting the Pacific Fleet, even for a few months, might have given Japan the breathing room it needed to recover. If the plague had reached California, the results would have been catastrophic. Unlike a conventional bomb, the effects would have unfolded slowly over weeks, with victims unknowingly spreading the disease far beyond the initial strike zone. Public health infrastructure would likely have collapsed. San Diego would not have been physically leveled like Hiroshima or Nagasaki, but the epidemic would have left massive gaps in the population. Perhaps the city's identity would have changed forever. Instead of the naval capital of the West Coast, San Diego might have evolved into a massive medical research hub, defined by world-class hospitals and somber memorials built in the wake of the Great Plague of 1945. But history took a different path. The atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, followed by the Soviet invasion of Manchuria, forced Japan's surrender. With the war's end, the window for Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night slammed shut. Unit 731 remains a haunting reminder of what happens when science is untethered from morality. Today, the site in Harbin, China stands as a museum, a silent witness to a tragedy that almost crossed the ocean. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to subscribe for more history videos. Sincerely, the History Pilgrim.